Hi, folks. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us online. We're going to be starting in a few minutes, but yes, please get comfortable. We are currently in our GDB freshman decision webinar, so you won't be sharing your faces or your audio, but you'll certainly see some of our faculty and staff advising team. We just want to welcome you and extend our congratulations and express our excitement. You'll see in the chat, we're dropping some information. Let us start by just sharing where you all tuning in from. Yeah, where are you coming from? California? Are you out of state? Share with us in the chat feature where you're tuning in from. California, great. Bay Area, seeing lots of California folks, some Sacramento folks. That's awesome. Well, welcome. And for those who are just now joining, welcome to our Global Disease Biology freshman webinar. We are going to start in a few minutes. Just kind of get comfortable. You'll find on your Zoom screen, and I'm sure by now all of us are very familiar with Zoom, but you'll find the chat function. Feel free to drop in the chat where you're tuning in from. We have lots of folks tuning in from, I see some from Sacramento, some are from California, Bay Area. I'm tuning in from Brentwood, California. So the NorCal, Brentwood, California, not in Southern California. I see a Central Valley participant. So welcome, Pasadena, awesome. And feel free to, on that chat, you'll find that it automatically sends it to the panelists. Go ahead and select panelists and attendees so that all of our attendees can see where you all are tuning in from. Awesome. Welcome. So we'll go ahead and start at 4:05. Just wanted to name a couple of things on Zoom. You'll see the chat function, which some of you are already using to share where you're from, California, Pasadena, all of these great places. You'll also see the Q&A function. We'll be using this throughout the presentation. So if a question comes to mind, if you already have a question, feel free to drop that question there. This meeting will be recorded. Your audios and videos won't be seen in this, but it will be recorded. So I'll send this out to all of you and you'll have an opportunity to watch it back in case you missed anything or wanted to revisit some information. Cool. Awesome. And another question, what are some things you're excited for at UC Davis? Any sports teams, clubs you're looking to participate in? Yeah, drop something in the chat and feel free also to change that to panelists and attendees so all of our participants can see what you all are excited for. Awesome. I love it. The cows. Yes, a great, so close to one of the dorms on campus. So that's awesome. Joining the college radio, rushing. That's awesome. Yes. Thank you, Saranjeet. Yeah, all great things. Welcome Week is a very exciting time. We'll also touch a little bit about that and kind of share more about the opportunities at Davis, what clubs you can be a part of, rushing, sororities, all of the aspects of college life here at Davis. So that's awesome. We'll give it a few more minutes, but yes, feel free, grab some water. If you need to use the restroom, feel free to do so. And welcome to the folks that are just tuning in. This is the GDB Freshman Decision webinar. I am Francesca, and yeah, we just welcome you. Congratulations again on your acceptance. We'll be starting at 4:05, so in about a minute. For those of you who are just now tuning in, feel free to drop where you're tuning in from and make sure to select panelists and attendees so we can all see where everyone is at. Additionally, if you want to share some things you're excited about here at Davis, feel free to do so. We have a chat function, which we'll be using to share some of that information. We also have a Q&A function that you can use to drop some questions. You'll have plenty of time while we're presenting to add those questions in there. But if you have things already, please feel free to use that chat function at the very end. I'm sorry, Q&A function at the very end. We'll go ahead and answer those questions. And I see that it is 4:05, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us virtually to our GDB virtual freshman decision webinar. I invite our panelists to go ahead and start sharing their video. And to begin, we'll go ahead and start with some introductions of some of the folks who are with us today. So here we go. I'd like to introduce Dr. David Rizzo.
Hi, David Rizzo.
Awesome. So he's the department chair. We'll kind of share a little bit more of when you would touch base with Dr. Rizzo, how you would, and how to contact him. We also have Dr. Johan Laveau joining us.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this special event. I look forward to meet you and talk a little bit about GDB.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Laveau. And then we have myself. My name is Francesca De La Salas. I'm the academic advisor. Some of you have already reached out to me to kind of schedule appointments and get to know a little bit of our department. During your time, the academic advisor will be the kind of your touch person. Any questions regarding requirements, resources, all of that. You'll be able to meet with me or one of our academic advisors. And then I'd also like to introduce Saranjeet Opal.
Hi everyone, Saranjeet, course administrator and academic advising assistant. So great to see everyone at this webinar. Definitely feel free to throw in your questions. We very much are looking forward to answering and getting to know a little bit more about where you're coming from and what your thoughts are. So thank you for joining us today and looking forward to connecting in the future.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing and saying hello. I'm going to pass it back to Dr. Rizzo to kind of share a little bit about our major.
Okay, thanks, Francesca. So just to reiterate, my name is Dave Rizzo. I'm the chair of the Department of Plant Pathology, which is the home of the Global Disease Biology major. So once again, congratulations on getting accepted to UC Davis, and we're excited you are considering Global Disease Biology as a potential major. So Global Disease Biology is a relatively new and unique major. So we've been around for about 6 years now. And Global Disease Biology is a partnership between my department, Plant Pathology, which is in the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences, but it also includes the School of Medicine and the School of Veterinary Medicine. So we're looking at all the major colleges, schools that are working on diseases of people, animals, plants, and we also focus on the environment to some extent as well. And so this is pretty much unique. I like to say it's unique in the world that we're tying all these things together. And some of you may have heard this term One Health that is becoming more and more common, with this idea that in order to solve some of the really big problems, disease problems, that we can't have a narrow focus, that it must include a collaboration of a lot of different areas to truly solve large problems. And certainly we've seen that over the last year or so. And so Global Disease Biology really takes that to heart. And you'll hear about some of the requirements for the classes, but all of our classes, particularly our upper division 4 classes, have this look at disease from the lens of human, animals, plants, and the environment, and tie these things together. So there's going to be a lot of details tied in here, but that's sort of the big picture of the major. We're a very science-focused major, but a lot of our students think much broader than that as well, dealing with some of the sociocultural aspects of health. So our students are fabulous. I teach 2 of the classes in the major. And in fact, I have a class, as soon as we're done here, I have to change Zoom and go to the introduction to Global Disease Biology right after this. And I've always enjoyed working with our students. So I guess I will pass that on to Professor Laveau now.
All right, thank you, Dave. So my name, to reiterate, my name is Johan Laveau. I'm a professor of plant pathology. I'm in the same department as Dave Rizzo. I do a number of different things on campus. I have a research lab. I look at plant-associated microorganisms and how they contribute to plant health. I'm also a teacher and instructor for a number of classes, including classes that are required or electives for our GDB students. So that includes SAS 13, Disease and Society, GB 103, which is a microbiome class, as well as a class I'm going to talk about a little bit more, GDB 189D. As the basis of this slide here, because one of the interesting things I think about the GDB major is that we give all our students, obviously you're going to take a lot of classes, you're going to be prepared for a future where you might have a career or a follow-up education on concepts and topics of disease and health. But one important part of the GDP experience is the research practicum. That is really designed to allow students to work together one-on-one, if you will, with a professor on campus. It can also be off campus if that is the topic that you're interested in and that topic is not being presented or present at UC Davis, but it is an opportunity for you to get involved in research. We believe that this is a very important part of your of you being a GDB student. The idea there is that you get to learn about the scientific method. In other words, you get to learn about how do scientists ask questions? Why do they ask some questions but not other questions? How do they find answers to those questions? These are all, I think, very important skills for even if you're not going to be a scientist yourself necessarily, at least you'll have an understanding of how scientists think, how they try to get to answers as it pertains specifically for our major to disease and health. So a couple of terms here, a couple of words here on the slide. So we call this experience the GDB practicum, and the GDB practicum has essentially two parts. One part is the practicum itself. So that is where you work with a professor in their lab on a particular topic of choice. So this is a close collaboration that you have with your with that professor. We are asking that students be proactive in trying to find out what kind of topics are they interested in, try to find people on campus that are working on that topic and reach out to them and see if they're interested to host you as a practicum student. The second part of the practicum experience is the GDB 189D. And that is, as all good scientists do, they do research, and once they are done with the research, they write it up in a paper, and that's what happens during GDB 189D. So essentially, you're going to write a practicum report. It will take the shape and form of a scientific manuscript, and if you do it well, and again, this is something that you will work with your practicum mentor on. You actually will come out of your degree with a well-written report that you can show off to future applications for a job or for any follow-up education as you choose. So that's just a few words on the research practicum project. If you have more questions about that, I'm sure that we'll have some time later on for questions, and we can address any more specific questions you might have about this experience.
Awesome. Wonderful. And yes, just like what Dr. Laveau mentioned, we do have a Q&A function. So as we're presenting and as questions come up, feel free to use that, and then we'll save plenty of time at the end for questions. But in this next portion, I just wanted to quickly show some of the requirements and expectations you would have entering your first year here at Davis. And so I've listed here the lower division requirements, and most of it is, your general chemistry, physics, biology, calculus, organic chemistry, and statistics. We do have two major specific courses that actually Dr. Rizzo and Dr. Laveau are teaching within most likely your first year. But your first 2 years at Davis, you'll mostly see yourselves in these courses balanced with some of those GE courses, depending on courses that you're bringing from high school, community college, your AP credit. We could also see you in some of those upper division restricted electives, which I'll get to in a moment. But here is our core curriculum for our upper division requirements. We have some biology courses, microbiology, courses specific to One Health. So exactly what Dr. Rizzo was mentioning earlier, PMI 129Y will focus more specifically on that holistic approach. And then some of the courses you would take in your final year. So GDB 101, 102, similar, the practicum related courses, exactly what Dr. Laveau was mentioning. You'll see that also in your schedule. And as we meet and have more of that one-on-one advising time, we'll get the opportunity to create these plans so that you do have a really solid idea of what your next 4 years would look like at Davis. You will notice on the bottom, we have 2 pathogen and disease courses listed. So we have a list of about 6 different courses that you can choose from, most of them offered in winter and spring, and we'll have a lot of those prerequisites that I showed in the previous slide on there prior to enrolling in those courses. But I did want to bring our attention to the restricted elective component. So restricted electives, this is something that is also a very unique part of our major. We, within the curriculum, have our students enroll in restricted electives. So what they are 25 units of upper division science or science adjacent courses, courses that in some way are related to your short-term or your long-term goals. And it can be related to your academic interests, your research interests. So courses that would support you in your practicum exploration or in your research. And then also courses related to your professional goals. So if you want to continue research further, or if you want to go to a specific graduate program and have courses that you want to take and kind of have under your belt in preparation for that, you have this opportunity. And as you take your courses, so, GDB 90, GDB 187, even meeting with our office, will be able to help you and navigate how to tailor your restricted electives and what it would look like to have those submitted and reviewed. We will review them very holistically, so as a unit. And so with your restricted electives, we really encourage students to be quite thoughtful and intentional with the courses that they're taking to really see how these courses can support them in their growth at UC Davis, but also beyond. And so a very quick overview of our major requirements. Once, SIR, we definitely will have the opportunity to create those one-on-one kind of plans to really map out what your time here at Davis would look like. But related to your time at Davis, I'm going to pass it to Saranjeet so she can talk a little bit about some resources for student success.
Awesome. Thanks, Francesca. So like we were saying with global disease biology, there are some very unique aspects to this program, and kind of touching base on one of those was what Dr. Laveau was talking about in terms of that practicum. So students will all be engaging in research. We definitely encourage you to look for places on campus that can help you kind of navigate that field. And as UC Davis is one of the most robust research institutes, you will definitely have a lot of opportunity to connect with some fantastic faculty, but it can seem like it's a big net, so we definitely want to give you some resources to narrow it down. One of the great places on campus that you can definitely touch base with is the Undergraduate Research Center. They have a very comprehensive set of resources, workshops, mentors, advising sessions, and professionals in that space that you can connect with and say, hey, I'm a GDB student. I really want to focus on this area. Where can I go next for my steps? And we definitely encourage you to utilize that as a great resource. They also have a really exciting conference week where you can present your research and kind of get a little bit more of an insight into how these areas of research in GDB can be applied into wider spaces. So if you are looking at GDB and looking into further education, you are looking into any of that, this is a great stepping stool to get your foot in there and look at some kind of real world applications of your research to present, to publish, things like that. Another great place that students can connect with is Handshake, which is one of our student portals at UC Davis that can be used to look into research opportunities, look into internships, look into jobs as well. So if you are looking into trying to find places, that's a great place to kind of start to narrow down that field, look into what's out there, and look into who's posting those places and seeing, even if you don't get in, you can always follow up with that person maybe in a year's time Labs are always having students coming in and going out, so definitely feel free to start connecting with people, start your journey in knowing who you're interested in doing work with, and then following up where it's appropriate. And finally, one of the fantastic areas that we always encourage all our students to check out is our website, gdb.ucdavis.edu. We actually have a new research tab that has been curated by Hannah, who is one of our peer advisors who's joined us today, as well as our other peer advisors. And this is a tab that has been flooded with a bunch of fantastic resources in terms of speaking with other students. We have actually a podcast where we interview current and hopefully alumni coming from UC Davis, from GDB, and they have some great tips and tricks about what they did in their research. We also have a bunch of resources and documents that you can find and links as well. So definitely check out some of those. That's 3 to start with, but there are plenty of other things that you can do in terms of resources for student success and support. And like Francesca was saying earlier, you have your advising team. We are here to help you navigate these things. We know we throw a lot at you, and you can always come to us and we can always navigate what that looks like together. And so speaking of, you can definitely stay connected with us. We know that you've already been receiving some emails from us and you're attending today, and that's fantastic. We love to see you engaged. So feel free to email us at gdb-advise@ucdavis.edu. That will connect you to our entire advising team, where it's composed of myself and Francesca and our peer advisors, who are students as well at UC Davis. So definitely feel free to email us individually, or you can email our entire team. And like we were saying, hit up gdb.ucdavis.edu as well, just to get a little glance and see what are some fantastic things going on in the program. And that concludes pretty much our very brief overview and session today. So please feel free to use the Q&A. We can actually see some people have been posting some questions, which is awesome. We really appreciate that. Let's go ahead and introduce Hannah as well. So Francesca can allow Hannah to be a panelist, and then maybe we can even get her to put her camera on, introduce herself real quick, and then we can kind of shift into the Q&A. So I can see Hannah's there. Hannah, please feel free to turn your camera on, unmute, and let us know a little bit about you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Hannah. I'm a GDB peer advisor. I'm a 4th-year student. I'm about to graduate, but I'm still going to be in the office for a little bit. So I'd love to chat with you all and share some experience I've had in person and online experience now as a GDB student. I am a transfer student, so I do have that experience as well. I love sharing my experience as a GDB student, and I'm also involved in a nutrition research lab doing a project on infants' iron consumption and memory development. And yeah, I'm so excited for you all to join.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. So we have some questions, keep them coming in, but the first one is it possible to double major as a GDB major or minor in other interests? And I will open up to all of our panelists. Maybe Francesca can start us off, and everyone is welcome to answer as well.
Yes, great question. So double majoring and minoring, it gives a great opportunity to supplement or broaden kind of the focus during your time in your undergraduate study. So definitely love this question. With the GDB major, considering the 25 units of restricted electives and kind of the core curriculum, we are one of the majors that have higher units. So it might be a little tricky depending on which double major you're considering to fit that into that 4-year span. It depends. One thing we talk about in our advising sessions is workload and inviting some reflection on, can you handle everything? What are your extracurriculars? How can we balance your schedule? And so with those conversations, we'll have a little bit more clarity of what major or minor or minors can fit into your plan. But yes, definitely room to explore.
That's awesome. Thank you, Francesca. So the next question is, how many courses would you recommend taking per quarter? Again, anyone's open to answer, but I think Francesca, Hannah, and our advising team, you can definitely feel free to pull on experiences as well.
Oh, I see Dave unmuted. Dave, did you want to jump on this one?
No, I'll leave that for you. I was thinking of actually jumping in a little on that very first question.
Yes.
Because there was somebody else there was like 2 other questions about majoring and minoring as well. And I think it's a great idea if you can do it to do the major. The minor, I think, is really interesting. And what a lot of our students have done is pick a minor that's very different than global disease biology. Global disease biology is very science oriented. And so a lot of people pick majors that complement that. So in sociology, in the humanities, I know in class right now, I have students who are minoring in minority studies and religious studies. I actually have a student in class who's a double major in religion and global disease biology, or taking global disease biology as a minor. So you could tie all of these things together. And I think that brings a lot to our major, having students with so many different interests.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for adding that, Dave. Yeah, and that's kind of related, to Saranjit's second question. How many courses would you recommend taking per quarter? It'll really depend. On the university kind of standpoint, the 12 to 15 units is a good gauge. And so that ends up being 3 to 4 classes, depending on the quarter. And if there's any seminar courses involved in that, I'd say 3 to 4 is a pretty normal schedule that we'll see. But with kind of those added elements of research, extracurriculars, we will talk about it. We'll see how many units you can handle. What kind of courses can you handle? Do you want to take, like what Dave mentioned, the religious studies course with some of your GDB courses? Or I think I saw someone ask about biotechnology and political science. So we'll aim for that 3 to 4 mark. If more, if less, it'll depend on your situation and on your experience at Davis.
Thank you, Francesca and Dave. And tying into the next question is, does global disease biology open up a career in specifically biotechnology? So if anyone wants to touch base on that.
I can give that a try. So I think the answer there is yes, it can. Absolutely. So if you think about biotechnology and what it can do, especially in the realm of disease and health, I think there's a lot of options there that you can explore. Just thinking of the current situation, vaccine production is essentially biotechnology. And so I think GDB is an excellent major for that. If biotechnology has your interest, but you're also interested in health aspects, disease aspects, then that is an absolutely, this is actually a great major. You can pick your classes, your 25 restricted elective units in such a way that you can build a curriculum that really complements that. Get biotechnology classes on the books. You can even reach out to folks that are doing research in terms of biotechnology here on campus and see if they're interested to serve as your GDB practicum mentor. So the answer to that question is absolutely, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Laveau. And again, if anyone else wants to kind of jump in and answer any of that as well, it's fantastic. The next question as well is, how soon should we begin undergraduate research? Is it possible to start freshman year?
Yeah, I can speak to that as well. You can start as early as you like. You could be reaching out right now. After do a little bit of research on the website, see what kind of research is going on campus, who's doing what. Try to match that with your own interests. Now, those interests might change over time as you get exposed to more classes, to other professors, other types of ideas, and so on. But it's never too early to start. Very often, I would say, I think freshman year, if you want to reach out and get an opportunity to do some research, I would recommend it, because if you start early, you have a little bit of a better opportunity to get to know certain labs or get to know what research is all about, and you can build a rapport with your potential practicum mentor in your senior year, and that's very important, because a lot of professors on campus, if they are looking for undergraduates to come help them out in their labs, often they're not. They would probably prefer students that have a longer term commitment and that they have an opportunity to observe for a little while, work with, get to know. And I think that's all going to be very useful for that relationship, the mentor-mentee relationship. So you can start early with your undergraduate research. It wouldn't be the practicum project yet, because that will reserve for the senior year. But you can definitely get units, research units for that as well. So absolutely possible to start in your freshman year.
Thank you, Dr. Laveau. And yeah, just touching base on exactly what Dr. Laveau was saying, you can get units for this as well ahead of time. We definitely want to encourage you to build rapport, build connections, and we do want to make sure that that senior report, that senior practicum is done senior year. So we can definitely make sure that we accredit you for your hours. You can do all of that great, interesting research earlier on, but don't worry too much about that just yet as a freshman student. Definitely want to encourage you to connect with communities, resources, networks. Don't feel too apprehensive about starting right when you get in at fall, but we definitely want to encourage, a lot of our GDB students love to dive into that research, so go ahead. One of the actual good things that came out of us being remote is that a lot of information is online now, so definitely feel free to use that and keep in touch with our advising team if you have any questions about that, but that's awesome. So one of the questions that also came in was kind of touching on the majors and double majors, sorry. So is it typical for GDB majors to have a double major or a minor in something else like political science? Is the workload a lot in GDB, like having a second major or minor too much? So I think Dr. Rizzo kind of really went over that, but if anyone else wants to jump in on that, we definitely can open up that space again. But yeah, definitely an option, careful planning, definitely check in with us about what that means in terms of our restricted electives versus major requirements and things like that. So definitely possible, definitely seen students do it. Just stay in touch with us about how about to do that. Great. So the next question is GDB a good fit for someone considering pre-med?
I can take that one. And the answer is definitely yes. We have a lot of students who are on the pre-med track and have gone to medical school. They have students all over the country in various medical schools. And I saw there's another question further down about aligning with courses with a pre-med track. And one of the key things to think about that is there actually is not that many classes that are required to be a pre-med major. And the class that I'm going into right after this one, the Introduction to Global Disease Biology, I spend 4 weeks on careers. What can you do with global disease biology? And I bring all sorts of advisors, people who advise on pre-med tracks, all of those sorts of things. And one of the cool things about the major, kind of going beyond this particular question, is we've had students go in all sorts of directions. When you saw that list of classes, we have students go into a number of different areas. We have the medical school, but we also have students who've gone into public health, veterinary school, law school, graduate school, and everything from epidemiology to hardcore molecular biology research, plant pathology. So a wide array of graduate and professional schools, but we also have quite a few students who've directly gone into getting careers in labs, including biotechnology. I know several that went into the biotechnology industry, working with all sorts of public agencies. So the sky is the limit. And I've certainly seen many students change their mind on their direction that they go once they've gotten here. And we said in the intro class, we spend a lot of time on careers.
And I would add to that, there's no shame in changing your mind as to what your direction is for what you're coming to do here at UC Davis. There's many students, like Dave said, that come in pre-med and then realize there is a whole other world out there where you can study disease and health, where you can help people, animals, plants, the environment, make it better health for all those things. And so keep that in mind and come with an open mind. There's nothing wrong with pre-med, being pre-med. There's no problem with that at all. And like Dave said, there's a lot of students that come into GDB, go through and go straight on to medical school, and very, very successfully as well. Just be aware that there are students that do change their minds as they become exposed to the various career options and the various topics that we cover in our curriculum, in our classes, and as examples of professors and researchers that they meet during their time as a GDB students on campus.
Thank you both. That was great. So I think another question might be geared towards more Francesca is, how many AP and junior college units transfer? Does this allow extra electives, or does it allow you to graduate early?
Yeah, great question. So the most common AP credit, and I see there's a second question related to AP credits. The most common AP credit I see is typically the statistics. So AP statistics, if you receive a 4 or higher, you typically will receive credit for your lower division statistics requirement. You can also, or we can also see, the first series in the math, or the first course in the math series be counted towards some of those prerequisites in our major. For junior college units, it really depends. I would invite you to use assist.org. And if Hannah or maybe Saranjit can drop that in the chat, that's a really useful tool, especially if you've taken a community college class in California, to see what unit that would transfer over as. It could be, for your English composition, some of your GEs, or even some of our prerequisites. So like I said earlier, it's known as Aggie Advising. So during our Aggie Advising session, we'll go in and carefully take a look at the transcripts that you're bringing in, whether it's high school or college, and make sure that you aren't repeating any of those courses and are getting adequate credit. And then in terms of graduating early, it's possible. I know some folks are in like an accelerated high school program where they've completed a lot of their general ed requirements and have the opportunity to really focus on whether it's restricted electives, research, or graduating early. So there's definitely room for that.
Fantastic. Thanks, Francesca. So the next question, which might be best suited for Dr. Rizzo, Dr. Laveau, or both. So how big are the classes in the GDB major?
That depends a little bit on the class. So if you look at the specific GDB classes, that can be a range. To give an example, GDB 189D is a class that I teach at the end there, where I supervise or I guide students, help them out with writing their practicum report. That can go anywhere from 10, so it's a very small class and it's not really even a real class, to 75 to 80 in the spring quarter, because that is the quarter where many students are getting ready to graduate. The class I currently teach, GDB 103, is offered twice. That's 100 students currently. That's a typical size for that class. Another class which GDB students take, but is not exclusive for GDB students, is the big class I teach, which is SAS 13. That currently is offered as a class of 500 students. So you'll be in a room, there's definitely GDB students there, but there's going to be other majors represented as well. As a matter of fact, we have, I believe, about 60 majors represented from all 4 different colleges at UC Davis in that class. So it's a very diverse student population in that class, which makes it a fun class to teach, I should also say. And then maybe Dave can speak a little bit to the classes that he teaches, GDB 90 and 102.
Yeah, so the classes that I teach within GDB, the class that I'm going to right after this has 38 students in it. It ranges in the 40 to 50 range most quarters. GDB 102, which is the capstone, I teach 2 sections, each with about 75 students. So those are the focused GDB classes, but a lot of the restricted electives can be sometimes much smaller classes as you're going and taking different types of courses. So you're going to range from intro biology, and I taught that for many years that had 700 students, down to classes with maybe 15, 20 students. So you'll have an entire range there. And then again, there's the research part, which is very one-on-one. So I think that's a key thing to keep in mind.
Definitely. Thank you both so much. The next question, which maybe we'll gear towards Hannah, is, are there any opportunities in GDB you wish you had taken or known about as a freshman? So again, Hannah is a transfer student, so she joined after she had taken 2 years at community college. But Hannah, is there anything that you wish you had known in your first quarter as a student in GDB?
So I did get involved in what's called a first year Aggie Connection, and it was the one that was offered through our department. So the GDB advising team ran this FIAC, which is the abbreviation for those programs. That's called UN Research. And so these are offered for first year students to guide them in there's a whole range of different classes that you can take advantage of. I believe there are no units, there's no grades. It's basically just all for you. And so the UN Research one specifically really helps you put your foot in the door in terms of getting involved in research. In addition to all of the resources that we've provided for students through our website, our newsletters, we also go into more specific detail in that class for students and kind of give you more tangible resources. Or I say we, I was part of the FIAC this past year, but like that class gives you more tangible resources, tables and packets and things to really guide you in emailing professors and faculty members to find a research position. So because research is so fundamental to the GDB major, I think anything that you can do to get your foot in the door in terms of research, whether that's the FIAC or or going through Handshake and finding a lab tech position, or it doesn't have to be, finding and funding your own research project as a freshman and developing your whole everything. It's more just the experience as a second year student that can really help you in your third and fourth years doing, or your senior year project, because you'll have the operations of the lab down. It's a new environment that you kind of have to get used to as an undergraduate student. So having that experience could be really beneficial to you.
Definitely. Thanks, Hannah. And kind of tying into that, we also had another question in the chat, which was, what is your favorite aspect of the program from a student perspective?
So I was one of those people that went into college pre-med and was super on track to becoming a pre-med or to becoming some sort of a doctor or something like that in the health field. And I started taking classes, before I got to Davis, but also at Davis in my research, using my research electives, I started taking some nutrition classes, and I automatically just really fell in love with the field of nutrition and something that I hadn't explored before. And I really appreciated the fact that this major not only guides you in the curriculum that it provides in disease, One Health, biology, specific topics, but also gives you the flexibility and kind of pushes you to expand your horizons as a student, as a member of society, as people that are contributing members to ongoing research. And so, yeah, I think that it was really sound advice that Dr. Rizzo gave, was to really have an open mind as a student. That can really help you flourish as an undergraduate. Because in my experience, I did have a great change of heart. It wasn't like a bad thing by any means. It was really transformative, and has really helped propel me into what I want to do for a career.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you for sharing your story. Definitely something that resonates with a lot of students in the room. So thank you very much. The next question, which we may have already kind of touched on, but I'll open it up again to our panelists to add anything else. Are there opportunities available for GDB students in conjunction with the School of Vet Med?
Most definitely. I should point out that 2 of our upper division 4 classes are taught by faculty in the School of Veterinary Medicine. So you have direct contact with every GDB student has direct contact with the School of Veterinary Medicine. Plus, a lot of our students do their research practicums and research with faculty in the School of Veterinary Medicine. And one of the things that, to keep in mind when you're thinking of research opportunities is don't just think of, all right, the faculty in the School of Veterinary Medicine only work on diseases of animals. So when you think of like our current pandemic, those are zoonotic diseases that move from animals to people. And so there are many faculty over in the veterinary school who work on those types of diseases. And this school, the vet school here at Davis, is world renowned for work on those types of diseases. So there are a lot of opportunities, and we work closely with the folks in the vet school and the med school as well.
Definitely. Thanks, Dr. Rizzo. And as well as that, remember, restricted electives are a thing that we definitely want students to focus on and kind of create a key theme around them. So if you are interested in that field, you can definitely go ahead and take some classes there, connect with faculty in those spaces, and develop a rapport with them and maybe do research with them. So thank you again, Dr. Rizzo. A very interesting question is, can GDB restricted electives help satisfy general education, topical breadth, or core literacies? So I might hand this over to Francesca. It's a very advising heavy question. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love how specific this is and that you are aware of those topical breaths and core literacies already. So kudos to you. Yes, it definitely can. So restricted electives, I mean, each of our courses at Davis, it'll have GE credits listed there. And I know a lot of incoming students maybe think, okay, I really need to, buckle down and get my GEs all sorted away in my first 2 years so that I'm all ready and good to graduate. And I'd say, to kind of be cautious with that thought. If you have that thought, the restricted elective component gives opportunity to explore courses that maybe aren't so heavily STEM. Dr. Rizzo mentioned some ethnic studies courses, you can do American studies, religious studies. In some way, your restricted electives need, as Saranjeet mentioned, to have some common theme or thread or be related to your short-term or your long-term goals. And so we'll keep that in mind. But yes, you can certainly be kind of strategic in how you place your restricted electives to keep in mind those specific core literacies. And we will help you definitely with that. And we'll also partner with the Dean's office to make sure that any questions you have concerning your GEs get addressed.
Fantastic. Thank you, Francesca. And just touching base a little bit on that as well, we are the GDB advising team, so you can definitely come to us with all of your GDB related questions. If you have any questions at all and want referrals, we're your first point of call. That's absolutely great. But as well as that, like Francesca was saying, we also partner with the College of Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. They have their own set of requirements. We know it can sound like a lot. UC Davis is decentralized, but we're here to help you kind of navigate that field and figure out where to go. So great questions. Definitely let us know if you ever have any of those in the future, and we can help you figure out where to go next. But that's fantastic. Thanks, Francesca. So the next question, which again, we may have already touched on, but I'll open it up, is GDB a good fit for someone who wants to be a healthcare admin?
Yeah, the answer there is absolutely. I think that the major, the curriculum that the major offers is a great basis for that type of career, for sure. And then, as I've said, for other career options, you really have a lot of freedom there to choose your restricted electives and really personalize your GDB experience and personalize it in such a way that it becomes a good fit with what you think you want to do next. And that could be like the person that's asking this question, that could be a healthcare administration. I was trying to think if we actually have some alumni that went in that direction. I'm not sure, Dave, if you can think of someone. There are several people that went to do public health for sure. Not sure. Do you know, Dave? Good examples.
Off the top of my head, that focus on it, administration. Sometimes that you have to move up the food chain
right.
to get to that. But there's definitely people who are interested in that topic. And the class that I teach this quarter, my other class, is on disease policy. And so that is a really big part of that. And, I love it when I have students in the class who are minoring in economics or managerial economics, because they bring some of that real world thing where, there's only so many bullet points you could put. And then it comes back to how are you going to make this work? And we spend a lot of time on that, as Hannah knows, since she's in the class this quarter talking about policy and those sorts of things. So most definitely, that's a direction you could go.
And you can consider also adding business classes to your restricted electives for this particular career. I think that'd be absolutely useful to do that. So again, the freedom that the 25 units of restricted electives offer really is to your advantage.
Fantastic. Thank you both. And as well as that, like we were saying, we have so many resources on campus. We also have one that's titled Health Professions Advising. So if you ever wanted to connect with an advisor specifically on anything that we touched on earlier in terms of the health field, so public health, looking at healthcare administration, veterinary studies, if you want to look into pre-health, any of that, we do have seasoned advisors there who can really walk you through some of those prerequisites and talk about how to apply, how to get into these fields, what those next steps are. So thank you both so much. The next question is, how difficult is GDB compared to other biology majors like cell biology?
Yeah, so that is I think a tough one to answer. Maybe not. I think there's a lot of classes where these two majors overlap. Organic chemistry is one of them. And if you think about difficult classes, that to me, I always hear that is one of the toughest ones. So in that sense, it's not more or less difficult. We also have an organic chemistry requirement. So you gotta just bite the apple and go for it, right? But what is, I think, nice about GDB is that you take those classes, you take organic chemistry, you take biology, you take math. And for us, for the GDB major, the students in our major, it is really a path towards, understanding disease and health in a way that is integrated under this umbrella of One Health. And I think that's really what the major stands out for. So, once you get into that a little bit, I think where you think, all right, this is a little community of like-minded students that all share this goal and this desire to make people, animals, plants, the environment healthier, then I'm not sure if it still counts as being difficult, because then you have that sense that you are contributing already as a student, and maybe as you graduate as a professional or as a graduate student. So that's probably how I would answer that question. So not more or less difficult. It depends a little bit on your attitude, I suppose.
I would say too, just anecdotally, in my communication with students from similar majors, I'm often, I've experienced where students from the College of Bio side will say, oh, well, the GDB major is harder because of the research component. And in one sense, people see the research and kind of might feel like they want to shy away from it. But it's something that even if you feel hesitant about your capabilities of doing research, like I was, it's something that pushes you beyond what you're comfortable with and makes you a stronger, not only person, but candidate for future positions or applications. And so in terms of difficulty and in classes and other components to these majors, it's more about how you handle the difficulty, how you learn from the difficulty, as opposed to the begrudging, just got to get through it. There definitely are moments like that as an undergrad student, like OChem, biochem, but there are other components that, might seem daunting at first, and at times they are daunting to send that email and get that rejection, or do something that you're not comfortable with in a lab and ask hard questions. But every step that you take in those positions makes you stronger, and you're going to become a really well-rounded student at the end of your GDB program. Not that you won't as a cell bio person either. There are tons of opportunities as a cell bio student, but just in terms of difficulty, I think that's a healthy mindset to have.
Yeah, and I was going to add, so the research component is an important part. and I think perhaps some of it might be not knowing exactly what it entails. The advising staff, myself, instructors, class instructors, we're all there to help you out if you have questions. Research really is about curious people, where, curious about the world, about how things work, and if they don't work or they are broken, how to fix it. And in the context of disease and health, that's a very good curiosity to chase after. And so, if the research now seems daunting, I'm sure that by the end, it will be much less daunting, because you'll have a better sense of what it exactly is. You have a chance of having experienced yourself, and that is something that you can take away from your major. Maybe you don't like research. That's at least that's what you found out, that research isn't for you. But at least you gave that a try. So it is a personal experience, and again, curiosity is a big driver for all researchers, I believe.
That's fantastic. Thank you both so much for some very wise words. I don't have anything else to add, but exactly, it's your personal experience. Definitely go through with this, take that experience on board. So we have about 5 minutes left. I see we have 2 questions as of right now, so we should be able to get through them. But again, if you have any other questions, please feel free to continue using the Q&A function. But the next question is, would it be difficult to change majors? Do we first have to complete a certain amount of courses before changing majors, or how would it be possible to double majors? So kind of thinking about the intricacies of that. Maybe Francesca, if you want to touch on that, see where we go with it.
Yeah, so I'd say the difficulty of changing majors depends on when you want to change your major. So within your first year, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to do so. But let's say, you're in your last 2-3 quarters, there might be challenges there with excess units and time of completion. So we'll talk about that. But in terms of, do you have to have a certain amount of courses before changing majors? It definitely depends on the college or major you're planning to change into. College of Engineering may have different change of major policies compared to College of Ag. For the most part, within our college, if you want to explore biotechnology, if you want to explore nutrition, wildlife, fish conservation, you definitely can. And the change of major process is actually really easy. And that would really just require you to be in good academic standing and have completed a quarter at Davis. And so as a first year in your first quarter, there isn't yet that opportunity to change majors, but as long as you're in good academic standing, we can make that happen. And we'll connect you really nicely to the major advisor or the team that you'd be working with. And then how would it be possible to double major? I think I definitely touched on this earlier, but it will depend also of the college and the curriculum for that double major. So what that entails is really coming up with an academic plan and seeing if it's feasible or practical to pursue this double major without having too much overlap between the 2 majors. And if so, it would just be consulting that major advisor and dean's office advisor to make sure that adding that double major, everyone's on board. So again, we'll talk about all of this in our one-on-one sessions, and you're welcome to make appointments with us even beforehand. I know some of you have already reached out. And so if that, I know with the SIR deadline coming up, if that's like a concern or a thought of yours, feel free to reach out to our office and we'll definitely share our contact info once more.
Thanks, Francesca. Exactly. UC Davis, we have a lot of different opportunities, programs, majors, and things like that. So we can definitely point you in the right direction to get connected with some folks. I think the first quarter that you join any institute, it's great to just shop around, look at what interests you, take classes and communicate with professors and students. So that's fantastic that some of you are already getting interested and involved with that. We love to see that. So for our last question, which is kind of a fun one, is there a GDB club or a club around that interest?
Yes, there is. A great question to land on. So we do have a GDB club. One of our officers for the club is actually one of our new peer advisors, Raphael Recon. And so if you're interested, feel free to shoot an email to gdb-advise@ucdavis.edu. I did also just drop the Aggie Life link for the GDB club. It has their email information and I think their Facebook and possibly Instagram, though I don't know if that's super active, but it also has their Discord link. And I know Discord is a platform many of you all may be using already, but that's primarily how they connect. And They've been really great in finding social opportunities for our majors to connect with each other, even within this remote environment. So having channels like the Quad or Shields Library to kind of virtually study together has been really nice. So yeah, we can definitely talk about more of GDB Club and what that club has to offer.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. We are pretty much bang on 5 o'clock. We know Dr. Rizzo has a class to teach, so we definitely want to be cognizant of everyone's time. We want to thank you all so much for joining us. We loved answering your questions. This video posting, we've recorded this, so it will be available to you in the future. We will send an email out shortly about some other follow-up information. Thanks, Francesca, for showing those emails again. Definitely, please contact us. We're here to support you as you make your decisions through your upper education and your future goals. So thank you. I want to say a sincere thank you to our panelists, Francesca, Dr. Rizzo, Dr. Laveau, and Hannah for joining us today and sharing your voices. It's been wonderful to getting to know everyone here in this space. It's 5 o'clock. Thank you all so much for joining and stay in touch.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.